I think the new Cold War that is being waged against China is driven by competition.
Hello, Laura. First of all, thank you for taking your time to join the discussion. Could you please introduce yourself briefly?
Italian national, and I've been living in Hong Kong since 1997. When I was living in Italy, I was active in anti-imperialist circles. I studied semiotics in Bologna, and for over a decade, I taught and published about urban space, social practices, and cultural theory.
Recently, a research paper on how to incentivize Hong Kong people to protest has gained much attention from the public. So I believe you're aware of this, but how much do you know about this, and what do you think of such academic research?
Because I taught in local universities, when I read about this research project, I wasn't at all surprised. I knew that anti-China forces were operating freely in Hong Kong. So in the past 2 decades, professors, PhD students, researchers, all with a strong anti-China attitude, created clusters in Hong Kong universities. And they influenced colleagues, but not only colleagues, they influenced students. And by doing so, they created these strongholds and literally marginalized those who held different opinions. Classrooms, as far as I can tell, were turned into an extension of Canvas and Oslo Freedom Forum workshops. These are well-known training centers for color revolutions. If we look at that research project that you mentioned in your question, the research project was conducted at the Hong Kong University for Science and Technology. There, students were paid to attend protests, but most importantly, they were paid to fill questionnaires. And I believe that incentivizing their participation in anti-government protests was one element, but this research project also served another sinister purpose, that was collecting data and profiling Hong Kong youth. Washington wanted to ensure that a second attempt at a color revolution would be more successful than the previous one.
So as we look into the matter, we found that there are many more similar cases in other countries. The Western forces have been trying to, under the pretext of academic research or humanitarian intervention, etc., instigate color revolution in some other countries. So what are their motives?
It's a struggle for influence. It's a struggle over economic choices, societal directions, cultural, and mainly political decisions. Not only they push global neoliberalism and all the values that are associated with neoliberalism, they also produce and reproduce biases and narratives that are aimed at bolstering US hegemony.
So do such experiments comply with research ethics? Are they really legitimate and justifiable ethically?
Clearly not ethical, clearly in open breach of any research ethics. That's been pointed out by colleagues of this professor and by researchers in other countries. This experiment was widely criticized. The general consensus was that this experiment was extremely unethical.
It seems that for the West, there is this urgency again to attack China now. So why is this happening?
I think the new Cold War that is being waged against China is driven by competition. US is losing its hegemonic role. So when the US talks about a rules-based international order, it actually means the US-led liberal international order. China, for instance, offers an alternative and a more successful development model than the US. And this alternative threatens the global hegemony of the US.